What's going on, guys? We're back with another video for the S13, but first we're going to do a little bit of work on the Tundra, and by work I mean spraying greasy or squeaky bushings with some coil oil so we can get that squeak to stop. But let's go ahead and take care of this real quick and then we'll get on to today's video. Full disclaimer, I know that this is not the way to fix it. I know I have to actually replace the bushing itself, but in the meantime, we're just doing these because we are actually going to get new shocks for this thing. So I don't want to... I'm just waiting on Brandon to be able to get the part for me at work. Until then, we're going to spray our blown bushings with some coil oil to lube it up a little bit. Alright, so on to today's video. We got a few packages here from Rock Auto, as you can see. That's actually our front and rear brake pads and brake calipers for this car. So we got Z32 front rotors, I should say, sorry. Front rotors and stock S14 5-lug rear rotors, because that's what we use with the VILLANS dual caliper bracket, yada yada yada. So we got those parts ordered up. We're not going to do the fronts because we're still waiting on coilovers so it can bolt up everything at once. But we have our rear pretty much on, so we're going to bolt on our rear rotors and paint the calipers and get everything all done. And maybe if we have a second person, we'll go ahead and bleed the hydro today, but we'll get to that. Before we get into the packages, we're going to go ahead and paint our caliper spacers from the VILLANS dual caliper bracket. Those go in between the caliper and the knuckle for the stock one because it makes up for the difference of the little plate. So we kind of just, it spaces it out, that way the rotor and everything aligns. So we're going to go ahead and scuff this up and get it painted. That way by the time we get to installing it all, it should be dry enough so we can install it. All we gotta do is scuff them up with some sandpaper. I'm just gonna use some 220 or so. Scuff it up, that way the paint can stick to it better and get it sprayed. I'm also gonna spray it with brake cleaner just to clean it up. I would take more prep process to this, but at the end of the day, it is gonna be behind the caliper, so you won't even see it. So I'm just painting it to prevent it from rusting quicker. How long do I have to do this for again? 3 minutes, right? So now that we got those painted and just waiting to dry, we're gonna go ahead and start disassembling all of this. Well, not all of it, just the calipers. That way we can scuff them up, paint them our color, and get it all ready. I'm an idiot. I just set a little fire right now. Let me show you guys how exactly I did that. So I was using the torch to try to heat up the metal a little bit, just so the paint can stick to it a little bit better. And I noticed there was a little bit of brake fluid residue still, so I sprayed it with some brake cleaner. And as it was drying, it was still a little puddle. I hit it with the torch again to heat it up quicker and dry it faster. My dumbass forgot that it's flammable. Started a fire. Try to put it out with a towel that was also covered in brake fluid, so the towel lit on fire and it was a whole shebang. I missed it. I didn't get on camera, but let's just get back to it and paint. sun is starting to go down. It's a little cloudy. Not ideal paint weather, but oh well, it is what it is. As you can see, we got the driver's side. Yeah, this is the driver's side. This is the passenger side. So we got it all painted up. Gonna do one more coat on these just because, and then our rear brakes will be done. We can install it once they're all dry, of course. Alright, so here are the parts that we ordered. We got brake pads, front, rear, and we got rotors, front and rear. So these are 240SX S14 5-lug. We just went with the normal, I should have unboxed this, but as you can see, it's not drilled, it's not slotted. So we just went with the stock rotor and a normal brake pad. And then we also went with the front, same old shebang, not drilled, not slotted, just a regular old rotor. I will say these Z32 rotors though are huge and they're freaking heavy. And we also got the pads for those. Also just regular old generic ceramic brake pads, both front and rear. Because honestly, you don't need brakes while you're drifting. Kinda. It's arguable, but let me explain why. Alright, so in the FC, I ran stock brakes up front the entire time. If you guys remember, I did do the brake upgrade when I did the 4-piston brakes, but we never ended up driving the car with them, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But like I said, we drove fine perfectly with stock single-piston brakes all around. This being said, yes, this car is a little bit more built, I could say, than the FC. So we did upgrade to the 4-piston brakes again. We went with Z32 fronts, but we are in fact using stock rears and then the VILLANS dual caliper bracket, which uses this Volkswagen Beetle caliper, I think it is. But as far as what we're doing here, the car is definitely not fast enough to overpower the brakes, or for what I need it to. I know there's a CTSV brake combination that you can use, which it's overkill, to be honest. Adam LZ used to run it, and he actually went back to Z32 brakes because the fronts were just too powerful, and it would lock up the fronts, and it was causing issues. So Z32 brakes perfectly fine, and I do plan on straightening the car, so not every day, but every now and then. So I thought an aggressive pad would just cause a lot of dirt and dust and squealing, and I just wanted it to be as streetable but trackable as possible, you know what I mean? I was gonna install the rears tonight, but unfortunately I did this after work, so I didn't have that much sunlight left. So the brake calipers are still drying. I can touch them, but they are still a little tacky, so I don't want to risk just forcing them on and scratching them and having an ugly looking caliper. And also because these rear calipers go on in a really weird way, and I'm most likely definitely going to scratch those if I try to do it right now. So we're just going to wait for tomorrow after work, which for you guys will just be in the next clip. So, yeah. Ready? Oh, wait. That's not right. It's still dark out. Let's try this again. Alright, next day, sun's out, get back to work. Calipers are up here dried now. They've been drying for pretty much all day, really. We've got our rotors on. Can you stop whining? Don't talk to me like that. But we're gonna go ahead and slip these on. And with these VILLANS dual caliper brackets, it's a weird way you have to do it. So I'm gonna show you guys that right now. Alright, so obviously first things first, when you get your rotors, spray it down with some brake cleaner and clean off the surface, because there is like this little slight residue on it that keeps it from rusting in storage. So you want to go ahead and do that, and then we can go ahead and start installing it. Once that's all cleaned up and you have pretty much your rear area like this, bare hub, you want to get the little shim that they provide, slip that on there. Their kit works with 4-lug and 5-lug, so you're good in that sense. Or 5-lug, so we're going with that. And this is where it gets weird. You gotta grab your caliper, and they are not side specific, so left or right doesn't matter. They're not side specific. So let me take off all my masking from yesterday. And pretty much when you buy it for Villains, it comes with the brake pads. It comes with the brake pad. So what you have to do, you get your rotor, you slip it through the caliper, off the car, just like this. And then when you slip your rotor on, you have to also slip it onto the studs that come on the dual caliper bracket. So, let me get you guys a little closer here. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but pretty much your two studs where you slip it on the caliper is gonna go in there. You also wanna make sure you grind down the knuckle. I'm pretty sure I said that in another video, but if you didn't know, with the Villains dual caliper bracket, you have to grind down the knuckle quite a bit to fit the caliper. Anyways, you slide the rotor onto the caliper, and you slide this on at the same time, trying to line everything up. Boom, just like that. Now we have the dual caliper and the rotor on. Now we have to get back here. Let me take you guys there. And you can see the studs are sticking out there. Now we have to get the nuts and thread them on in there. It's gonna be kind of difficult with one hand, so I'm gonna sit you guys down. But then you just thread them in, and you take a wrench and then tighten it back up there. And after that, pretty much just like a normal caliper, bolt it on. Oh, but you need the spacers. So that's pretty much how you bolt on the dual caliper and your stock caliper if you use the stock ones. Well, you have to use the stock ones with this kit. In your stock wheel bolts there, you actually install this spacer. I think it goes this way, to be honest. And this spaces out, it makes up the difference for the actual dual caliper bracket. That way your stock caliper can sit in the proper location. So I'm just gonna go ahead and time lapse through this and get you guys when we're done. Alright, this side is all done. As you can see, we got our Villains dual caliper right there, our stock caliper. We got the fresh pads that the caliper comes with from Villains. We got our fresh pads that we got in the mail from Rock Auto. And to get a closer look here, I don't know if you can see it, but there is that spacer right here. Let me try to get the light on for you. There you go. So you can see the spacers right there. So it's the stock bolt, knuckle, spacer, caliper. That way that spacer makes up for the distance of that dual caliper bracket, which goes to right there. And as you can see, there's no room there. That's why you have to get the wrench to tighten those up. But everything's all tightened up. We reconnected our e-brake cable and our brake cable here. We still have to do this one for the dual caliper, but other than that, this side will be done. We can get the other side knocked out. All right, so I ran into a little problem. We got it all bolted up just like the other side. Other side was perfectly fine. This side, I noticed the rotor wasn't really wanting to go in all that great. And if you look here, I spun it by hand, and the caliper is actually hitting the rotor right here. So I just talked to Villains, waiting for their reply. I don't know if I'm supposed to grind this down or something, because it's not hitting much. Because as you can see, let me see if I can move it by hand, with one hand. All right, it's a little tight, but with two hands I can get it to move. So I probably just need to grind it down a little bit. As you can see, it's only touching in a few little spots. But yeah, I'm just gonna wait for Villains' reply, and then we'll go from there. That I can put a flat disc usually to grind stuff down is at Brandon's house. So all we have now is a file, but I was able to file the bottom of the caliper there. You can see all the dust from filing it, just enough to where you can see there it's not touching at all anymore. You can kind of see, but there's that little black line right there. That is the gap that it now has, which is just enough so where it doesn't hit. Once it's all tight, it won't be an issue anymore. But if it does become an issue, then we'll go ahead and figure out what we're gonna do from there. But for now, it spins. I can spin it with my hand now. Let's see. See, look, I can spin it with my hand, so nothing's binding up, nothing's getting caught. So let's go ahead and tighten everything back up to get the other caliper on there, and we'll be finished with the back. As you can see, we showed you guys earlier, it's very tight, but there is clearance in there. I can in fact spin this, and everything's tight. so it's not going to be binding up on anything. Again, we'll check it later when we start driving it to see if we can see any scoring on here, seeing if it actually rubs. But we got that caliper on, e-brake cable is back on, hydraulic brake fluid cable thing line is on that side. It's also on and tight on this side. So this side's all done, as well as this side like we showed you guys earlier. So I'm just going to go ahead and I think I'm going to pull the e-brake just to see if it compresses or pulls the piston in or whatever. But yeah, and then later when Pawnee gets here, we can go ahead and bleed our hydro. Alright, well I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. We got the VILLANS dual caliper bracket installed, along with our brand new brake pads for the stock calipers and our new rotors. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sticking around till the end. And hopefully in the next video we can finally get to doing the front. So, peace out guys. See you in the next one.